Welcome to As the Story Grows. I'm Brian Patton. Today we welcome Amiensus frontman James Benson to the podcast. The new Amiensus record, Reclamation Part 1, is out now on M Theory Audio. This is an absolutely phenomenal album, and I did not include enough music clips to get you hype, but it is a record worth checking out for sure. James talks about getting into social work, finding a label willing to release a 2-part album, the writing and inspiration behind Reclamation, and so much more. We had a lot of fun hanging out, and I think everyone will dig this pod. I want to say thank you so much for checking out this episode of As the Story Grows. If this is your first time to the podcast, or you've been lingering for a minute but haven't subscribed yet, I would love it if you hit the subscribe button on your podcast listening platform of choice. You can find links in the show notes or at asthestorygrows.com to our podcast community via our Discord server, to sign up for the mailing list via Substack, or support the show financially and get early access to every episode via Patreon. Enjoy getting to know James Benson from Amiensus. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. I just went to the chiropractor.
Oh, fun.
After work.
Oh.
And
boy.
Yeah, it turns out I just started going last Friday. I've gone 3 times now in the last week, and turns out playing guitar and being reckless in your 20s ends up hurting you in your 30s.
Yeah.
So started specifically getting pain in like the shoulder blade area on my left side, and it would go away, but over the last like 4 or 5 months it didn't go away and turned into like numbness and stuff. And I was like, that's exactly where my strap sits. I'm a righty like most people, and that's not good, and it's probably explicitly related to the amount of guitar and bass that I've played over the last 15, 16 years. So
yeah, it's time for a lighter guitar, man.
Yeah, no, it's just dumb because I just fucking started playing Fenders like 2 years ago. So now I'm playing the Jazz Master. I think it's behind me. And I used to play. I have a Music Man again, but I had a Music Man for a while. That was what I played for a long time, and those are nice and light. They're kind of like an Ibanez. Nice. Very, very thin necks and very light bodies, but yeah, so my bad. But yeah, that's what it's like being, I'm 32, I'll be 33 in a few weeks here, so that's where I'm at now.
Nice. I'm playing bass at a gig this weekend, and that's my wife's bass. It's very nice and light, but I have a P bass, and I was like, but I like the way my P bass feels, even though it's like 10 pounds heavier. Yep.
I've got a Music Man bass for a 4-string, and then I've got an LTD for a 5-string back there. And that LTD, I'm glad that I'm not using that for anything anymore, really. Yeah. So probably weighs like 12 pounds.
Yeah. Are you you're up in Rochester?
Yep. Yes. Down in Rochester, because I'm at the bottom of the state. So, okay. Yeah, I'm up compared to most people in the United States, I guess.
Yeah, you're north from me, so
where are you located?
DC.
Oh, you're in DC? Okay. My 2 of my sisters live in Manassas.
Oh, very nice.
And my parents live in Inwood. No, not anymore. They live in Martinsburg, West Virginia.
Okay.
So I grew up in Lancaster, PA.
Okay.
So I moved to Rochester when I was about 13. I was going into 8th grade, and outside of going to college for a couple of years in Illinois, I've been in Rochester since. So I met my wife here, and she's from 3 blocks from where my house is located right now. Oh. Her parents live down the street, basically. 5-minute walk or a 1-minute drive.
Nice.
Yeah.
What was growing up in Lancaster like then?
It was okay. I mean, it's been a while. I haven't been back to Lancaster explicitly to like visit since I was, I think, a junior in high school. So probably like 2006 or 2007.
No.
So I'm not sure. Like I still keep in touch with a few people that I grew up with there, and most of them have moved around in that area. Like I have a few friends in Pittsburgh that I see pretty frequently because I play Pittsburgh, and I never hit, like, I've actually never played in Philadelphia. I've never played in Lancaster at like the Chameleon Club or anything. So yeah, I see friends that live in the Pittsburgh area and stuff now in New York. I have a few friends that moved up to New York City and stuff too. So I see them pretty often because I usually end up in New York City at least once a year. So
that's cool. It's crazy that you've never played like Philly. Like I lived in Philly for 6 years, and the scene there is just ridiculous.
It's popping. I mean, everything I ever see though is like what's it, Hate 5-6 stuff. Like it's always the hardcore. And I've never really been in like a real actual hardcore band. Like I Failed to Decay was my deathcore band for like a decade. And then Soulshade, one of my other bands, is more on that, like, it's still got some of that singing, like Deftones vibe to it. But like riff wise, our first album is kind of like mid 2000s Norma Jean. So you could almost call it hardcore, but it's more metalcore.
Sure. Yeah.
So
yeah, there's a good metal scene there.
Oh, word. So, I'll be close by. I'm playing Birmingham in Delaware. In Milton, Delaware on it's the first weekend of June, so it's like it's not the first because I think that's the first Saturday, but like it's the 8th. I think I play that.
Yeah, cool.
So it's with Chrome Waves though.
That's rad. What got you into music?
Ooh, that's kind of a well, that's like a simple question. It's kind of a deep question, I guess. My mom, I'll give props to my mom in this situation, even though my parents have never been like supportive of being in extreme metal. They're cool. Like occasionally, like I'll send them stuff now that I'm older and they'll listen to it and they'll just be like, the music sounds great. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, they don't care for any harsh vocals and anything.
Sure. Yeah.
But they'll be like, the singing part was awesome. My mom was a piano teacher when I was a kid, and ironically, I never took piano lessons until I was 27. And that's when I decided to take piano lessons from my former choir professor at college. And so mom being musical was probably it. I grew up with her teaching students, like until I was like 5. She didn't have an actual like leave the house type of job. She just was a piano teacher. And so like I grew up a lot around music. My siblings all like were involved in like band or orchestra growing up. So I liked music, but like beyond that, even in elementary school, and this is going to date me pretty hard, but like even in elementary school, like by the time I was in 2nd, 3rd grade, I have 3 older sisters. So I just say siblings most of the time, but 3 older sisters specifically. And they influenced me listening to a lot of like, what was on the like Rick D's in the top 40 back in the day on the radio, and like Linkin Park and Rage Against the Machine and Papa Roach and all that stuff was like my elementary school age. I still love Linkin Park. I'm not like a huge fan of either Papa Roach or Rage Against the Machine, but like I'll listen to them. I'll occasionally throw on a song, but other than that, I mean, like, yeah, it was just kind of discovering then music through like mainstream media. And then by the time I was in middle school, I think probably around 6th or 7th grade, my brother-in-law at the time, he still is my brother-in-law, but I think my oldest sister's like 23rd wedding anniversary just came up because she's about a decade older than me, but he introduced me to Zeppelin. And I think that's when I like decided I wanted to play music for the first time, like, and learn to play music. When I was in like 5th grade, I had like a band, and I just was the singer because I never again took any like instrumental lessons or anything like that. So, and then by the time I was in high school, I was dabbling with guitar a little bit, but like again, just the singer. Everybody else was like uber talented. They're still the people that I'm involved with Amiensus. Like, it's still partially my high school friends,
Nice.
Which is fucking crazy because it's half of our lives at this point. Like we met when we were like 15.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's wild. It's wild. Was it just a progression of like you listen to Linkin Park and Papa Roach, and then it's like Slipknot comes along, and it's just that progression for heavier and heavier music?
Yeah, but I don't like Slipknot. So it was like like Zeppelin. Linkin Park introduced me to like harsh vocals.
Yeah.
First, I think, and probably like 8th, 9th grade is when I discovered Arch Enemy. And so I'm trying to think what the fuck. It was the album before Doomsday Machine with Angela, the red one. Not Anthems of Rebellion either. It was before that. Damn, I'm blanking. It's probably like 2002, 2001. That's also when I discovered Under Oath.
Okay.
So their first 3 records, Wages of Sin. Yep, that was it. So Wages of Sin. And then I discovered like Cries of the Past by Under Oath and The Changing of Times, and then eventually Acts of Depression. I kind of went backwards, and then They're Only Chasing Safety came out when I was like a freshman in high school, and Silverstein was another one. So kind of diving into more like the emo stuff, but like I had this kind of wide range of like Arch Enemy, and early Under Oath was like very Black Death thrash type stuff, and then obviously like since then they've been more of that metalcore sound, but still love them. That was kind of the progression, like between like 11 and now, or like even like 10, because I have 5th grade to like 9th grade 14 ish was like all of that into one. And I like Arch Enemy. I don't like particularly listen to anymore, except for this stuff with Angela or Johan even before her. I don't really care for the new vocalist a whole lot. I mean, she's good at what she does, but like, you get to a certain point when you age that you like just continually listen to the old shit instead of like looking for new music as much. I still do, but yeah, in terms of Arch Enemy, it's like, they make the same album every 4 years, but
it's fine. Their record they released last year or 2 years ago, whatever it was, that was really my on-ramp. Because I had not listened to them before. Like, they were a band I knew about but never listened to. And so I picked that record up and I was like, I don't know, fucking rules.
Hell yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, whatever. And I was like, I dig it. And then I got the whole discography. And so it's like, then you just discovering. And it's the same with Architects. Like, there's like not their last record, but 2 records ago, everybody's like, this sucks. And I'm like, I don't know. I think it's kind of awesome.
Yeah. I like, and I'm starting to realize where I'm at and how many albums and bands I've been in. Not to get offended at the people who are like, your first album's your best album. And like, every musician's kind of like, no, my newest album is my best album. Right. Because like, you feel like you've progressed either in some way of like songwriting or like how well you play an instrument. Like, our first album, I had literally never recorded guitar in my life or like I played guitar at like one show when I was 19 in college, and it was like one song in that entire show that we played. Like it was at like a skate park. It was it was just some local bullshit for fun. I mean, which don't get me wrong, I still want to do at this point in my life. I'm like, I would love to just play locally instead of having to travel to the other side of the country. Yeah, just how it is out here. I mean, like I live like an hour and a half from Minneapolis and like an hour 15 from St. Paul. So that's mainly where we would head up to play. But like Madison's 3 hours away, Chicago's 5. Like when we play, it's kind of in this like 5 to 6 hour radius that requires a minimum of 3 to 4 hours each way to get to shows. So Rochester doesn't have a metal scene. It's only 130,000 people. And while some cities I've played on tour are great like that, this one's not. It's 45,000 people here work for Mayo Clinic.
Right.
So it's a town of doctors and nurses. They're not looking to go out and throw down.
Yeah, my brother and sister-in-law lived in Rochester for, I don't know, a few years. And she worked with the Mayo Clinic. So
yeah, my wife works for Mayo now, and she's been there for like 4 years now. Pretty much like when COVID hit, she actually left. She was working at Old Navy and left Old Navy after like a decade and went to Mayo. And I don't work for Mayo. I have interviewed there and they've offered me a job before, but I turned it down because not competitive salaries for what I do. So,
all right.
Yeah. Nice. Counseling. So,
Oh, okay, cool. What got you into counseling?
Well, actually, my band members. So in this band,
everything connects.
Yeah. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus and like go into their stories or anything, but I'm like I said, we kind of met when we were like around freshman year of high school for the most part. So 14, 15. And some of us were like, so like I graduated high school in 2009. Some of the guys who were originally in the band and one that still is, they graduated in 2010. But when we originally started, there was 4 of us, and basically 2 of the guys ended up having substance use issues. So when I went to college, originally I wanted to teach, and I wanted to teach history, but pretty quickly liked psychology a lot more, and discovered the path to becoming a substance use counselor. And just my background of like a few years of like, I'm not going to say like dealing with them, because it wasn't dealing with them and their behavior obviously impacted me a lot less than their families, for example, and their substance use issues. But like, they were my closest friends, like even to this day, like since I was 14, now at 33 almost, like my bandmates and like extended their, wives, girlfriends, children, they're my friend groups mostly. So yeah, at that point, I figured out that I liked psychology and drug and alcohol counseling and jumped into it. So nice. I graduated at 22 and did a year of interning and completed that. And then I've jumped into working at a methadone clinic for 8 years. And for the last 2 years now, since 2020, May of 2022, at least, I've been at my current place. And it's a combined mental health and substance use outpatient. So there's therapy, there's group therapy, there's substance use outpatient, and there's a detox center and a residential mental health facility as well.
Pronounce the band name?
Sure. I don't know that there's actually a right way, because it's a made up word. Okay. The way that I've always said it is Amiensus.
Okay.
So I hear a lot of Amiensus. That's fine. Amy, like more like Amy, but like Amiensus is always kind of how, with my Midwestern twang, I've always, kind of added that sound to it. Okay.
So as a made up word, where does that name come from then?
I don't remember, honestly. Okay. I was fairly sure a long time ago that the word Amien or Amiens, so like Amiens, Amiens, pronounced in French, because there's an actual city called Amois. It's pronounced entirely different than an English pronunciation, obviously. It's the site of the first tank battle in World War I ever. And has a very, very pretty cathedral, which we've adapted for some artwork in the past. It wasn't based on that. I was fairly sure it was the name of like a Roman legion at one point, and that's where I was like on Wikipedia looking up random history stuff and was like, oh, this is a cool word. We originally were called, like, our first iteration of the band was called The Last, and that was what we called ourselves in high school, because that was a Under Oath song on Cries of the Past called The Last. So that's what we named ourselves, The Last, after that song. And when we kind of switched gears and wanted to kind of turn a new leaf, when I was like 18, 19, we wanted a new name, and I picked Amiensus, and it's just kind of snowballed for the last 14 years.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Let's talk about this new record. How'd you get connected with M Theory Audio for the release?
So we got connected with M Theory because I released an album last April, actually, with my band Chrome Waves.
Okay.
So it was through Chrome Waves initially. So that was basically through my other band. I wasn't involved in getting on M Theory with Chrome Waves or anything. That was through Jeff Wilson. And Jeff was in Abigail Williams and Nocmistium. He's done a lot of other stuff right now. or done a lot of other stuff in history. So, but Jeff and I still do Chrome Waves together. So that was initially how we got involved. And then I basically, I guess the long story short of it is we were signed to Black Lion record from Sweden. And, we kind of told them what our plan was for like the double album.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, hey, we're not going to be able to do that. And we're like, well, that sucks. What do you think we should do then? And they were like, honestly, we're cool. You guys fulfilled the contract anyway. Like we're like, we don't want to hurt you guys. Like, do what you need to do. Look for something else, or where you can release it on your own, whatever you want to do. So I sent out a lot of emails and I got a lot of responses, and pretty much everybody was scared off by the double album thing.
Yeah.
And or they were like, we're not going to be able to release this till 2025. And I was like, no, that's not fucking happening. Especially when like our last album came out in October 2020. So It was one of those things where everybody was like, we don't have the funds to pay for like making, like, vinyl is expensive as shit.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And like making a good vinyl, like obviously people still buy black vinyl all the time, but like it's just way cooler to at least get a colored vinyl. So, we were looking at like 10 grand for a double album.
Yeah.
And I'm already in debt up to my eyeballs from fucking doing this for 15 years. So
right.
Basically we hit up M3 and they were like totally on board. I asked them and told them like, hey, this is our idea for it. Like we'll release it in 2 parts. It's a double album. We want to do it in like, within a few months so that people don't forget that it's a double album kind of thing. And they were on board with it. Surprisingly, we're just like, yeah, cool. Sounds great. Let's get it together. And so we handed it over last September and have been working on that schedule for everything since.
Man, let's talk about that concept. Why a double album? What was the writing process like that led you to wanting to release a double album? Was it just a wealth of material, or is there a concept that you were trying to capture going in?
Sorry, by the way, I have 4 dogs. If they start barking, I don't know if you'll pick it up on this mic, but
it's all good.
Well, it was kind of just like an explosion of music, of material. Like basically in 2020, when we released our last album, we hadn't released a full length record technically since 2015. So it'd been like 5 years. But we'd released over like an hour of music in that time span. One of them being an EP that was like 30 minutes long. So, we're getting into like Slayer territory where like their full length records are 30 minutes, but
yeah,
our EPs are 30 minutes. So, most of our records have been like 50 to 55. So, but yeah, like we finished that record in like spring of 2020 and released it in fall of 2020. And we hadn't done like a record as the 5-piece that we've basically been since 2017, besides the last one. So, and even then, like Kelsey, our guitar player, was like late to the game because he joined the band in 2017, but the rest of us have been doing it together since 2015 as the current lineup. And so, yeah, it was just like, hey, we have a very, very newish member, even though he'd been in the band for 3 years and he hadn't been like a huge part of the writing process for Abe Reaction. And we were just like all super fucking stoked to get to write music for the first time, like as a band. And like most of us were living in Rochester. Chris was the only one not in Minnesota. Todd lives in St. Paul. Chris lives in Green Bay, Wisconsin, so about 4.5 hours away from us. And Kelsey's originally from Green Bay, but he moved out here to be closer to the band. So yeah, the four of us are in Minnesota, and one person's in Wisconsin. So it was an explosion of material, and like within like 6 months we had like 20 demos going, and then we kind of narrowed it down over the course of like the next year, and we're like, all right, these songs sound pretty defined. We've got vocals, or even if we don't have vocals yet, we have like a really good idea of fully fleshed out instrumentals. And then we tracked drums at the end of, what was it, 2022 or 2021? I think it was the end of 2021. So nearly over 2 years ago, almost.
No.
Or yeah, a little over 2 years ago, we tracked drums. And so we spent all of 22 and the very beginning of 23 tracking guitars and vocals for it, because it was so much. And then just kind of like, okay, how do we differentiate this album from previous albums? What it like, how do we get the best sound out of this? We wanted really like the production to stand out a lot more, and not because we didn't like the production on any other album, but we were like, this is a huge amount of material, and the songs are like very varied. I'm especially like stoked to see people listen to part 2 versus part 1.
Okay.
Because like song to song on part 2, it's even more different than part 1. And part 1, even then, like I can only really point to 2 songs that sound kind of similar because I wrote them. And that's all. And but the second half, it's like, it's even more, I mean, like they're more straightforward song structures, I would say in part 2 than part 1. But, at the same time, vastly different genres, each like song to song in terms of metal. So, it'll be interesting. But yeah, it took us a long time to like, after we did drums, poor Chris recorded 13 songs because there are 2 instrumentals without drums.
Oh,
giving that away now in like 4 nights. Technically, we spent like the week after Christmas going into New Year's morning tracking drums in 2020, 2021, 2022. And we go to the studio at like 9 p.m. and track until like 2 a.m. each night. And we did that for like 4 days in a row over New Year's morning. And
cheers.
Yeah. Dude had a fucking lot of material to like get the right takes on. And like, yeah, it was just like, and that's like one of the only things we've ever tracked in a studio. Like every other record, it's always been produced by us entirely. We've recorded it, like all the vocals,
right there.
the mic right here where I'm sitting right now, all the vocals on this record, except for guest vocals, right in the place that I'm sitting in my house right now.
Nice.
So yeah.
Nice. Well, I think that work and time and attention to detail paid off, because like I've only listened to part 1, but I mean, it's gorgeous. Like it sounds phenomenal. Like I'm a big fan. Just why you're here, obviously.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Album's called Reclamation. Where the title come from, and does that kind of influence your approach to lyrics on either part 1 or part 2 or the whole thing?
I would say there's probably some influence. I wouldn't say that it was an intentional influence, but I mean, if you've looked at our discography, like obviously every full length record ends with the suffix ION. And so like part of choosing a title at this point, it's out like we decided after Restoration that like every title should end with the ION thing. So like Restoration, Ascension, Abreaction, Reclamation. So that like obviously I had to choose a word that, or like a word that ended in ION. Yeah. And this one was kind of like, okay, this is our massive project. We're, at this point 14 years into this, but as the current lineup, like, technically like 6 or 7 years into this. And it was kind of my version of saying like, instead of like, I dabbled between the words proclamation and reclamation, because proclamation to me was kind of like, this is our statement. And being that it's kind of our 4th and 5th album at the same time, it was like, hey, we've been doing this for X amount of time now, but we're still fucking here, and we're still like each record we make is going to be different, but there's still going to be sounds that sound like our original sound from Restoration in 2013. But this is our evolution, and we're as strong as we've ever been musically as a band, continuing to both explore some new avenues musically, but also remain grounded in what we've always done.
Yeah, that's cool. What then were you drawing from lyrically as you wrote this record?
A lot. There's like, I have like 2 ways of writing lyrics, and Chris actually helped out with this, our drummer, in writing lyrics on this record, because I honestly have written lyrics for so many fucking songs at this point in my life that I was like, hey guys, I would love, because Alec has written some lyrics in the past, as has our former guitar player Joe, who's on this record, but he's only on part 2. So I basically was like, hey, I have X amount of albums and projects to do at any given moment, and I don't want to I don't want to repeat myself, if that makes sense. Like I don't want anybody to be like, oh, he used that before, or like this sounds exactly like this song from this album. And so I had Chris pitch in a little bit on some of that, but I mean, like lyrical themes, I'm never able to stray away from life experience in my job as a counselor, especially with substance use counseling, and B, writing about very ambiguous dreams or like nature related themes. And I kind of techniques either write everything in advance and then just say, okay, will this fit with this song? Or B, and this is my preferred method, is we have the instrumentals done and I will sit there with the song and the click track and basically word for word make it up in the moment and then go back and then re-record actual vocal takes to it. So
nice.
I'm not a like, here's the demo and now I'm going to do the final takes. I'm going to demo it. Nobody will hear it. And then I'm going to do all the final takes and show it to the band and then like change anything that might be like, if, especially in the singing department, cause I'm not a music expert, but the other guys have all gone to school to some degree, at least, and taken some musical classes. I was in choir. That's the only thing I ever did. And let them be like, okay, actually you sang a major 7th here, but it should be like a 5th or something. And like, don't get me wrong, I kind of vaguely know what that means, especially when it comes to like guitar chords.
Yeah.
But like vocally, I could be like, okay, just tell me what this pitch is.
Right.
And I will say, yeah, I'll sing that pitch.
Yeah.
That makes sense to me. Like if I hear something, I can do it. But
yeah,
So that's lyrically, like there's a lot of like religious aspects to it too. I'm not religious, but I went to Bible college. I have a degree in theology from a Bible college. So as does one of the other former members who still sings on pretty much every project. He's never been in the live band. He did one show with us once when I was sick. And he plays acoustic and sings on pretty much every album that we've ever done. So
cool. That's cool. Who did the album artwork?
Aria Fawn Art. She's a babe. She does some wicked shit, man.
Yeah.
We'd been like, I'd been following her because of friends that used her for artwork like 10 years ago for a while on Instagram. And so we kind of were pondering, and like I did the album artwork last time for Abe Reaction, and when I say I did it, I wish I could like flip my camera on my computer for you right now, because it's literally like a pour over wooden painting to my left right now, and there's the back cover over here on my other wall too.
Nice.
But yeah, this time, like I did some pour over paintings and was like, what do you guys think about this? And they're like, I think we should do something different and go with an artist this time. And I'm not offended because I'm not an artist in that manner at all. And so I was like, mulling over, like, most of the people that we worked with for art have been for merch, and a lot of it's just black and white. So we found Aria again, and we're like, she would be fantastic. And so we hit her up and we kind of presented her with the mixes as they were coming out, and like some of the pre-pro, like edited, but like not fully mixed stuff, like where it was just like, hey, like we had 2 people working on the album. One of them is my bandmate Spencer, and then his friend Stacy, who was doing all the quantization for us. And like Stacy basically gave us all like, okay, here's everything like edited perfectly. And then like as like a mix. So we sent her all of those, and then we sent her the mixes as they were coming out last summer, and kind of gave her an idea of like what the songs were about lyrically. And she took it from there, and she did a fucking amazing job. And I wish I could have afforded like her to do everything, all of it, because like some of the stuff we use for like some of the CD and stuff is Todd's photography, which Todd, our bass player, is an amazing photographer. And Abe Reaction's liners and stuff were all of his photography too. So from our tours, ironically,
nice.
that's where we get the artwork from. So but Aria's amazing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a sick cover.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Album's out in 2 weeks. What's the plan for the band? You said you got some shows coming up. Are you guys gonna try to tour? What's the scene like for small metal touring band these days?
We're not. That's Chrome Waves is going to be touring.
Okay.
Amiensis is kind of on hold for live stuff at the moment. Kelsey almost died last year.
Oh,
We posted about it a few times, but Kelsey was hospitalized from like late March through the end of May because of a pretty bad staph infection.
Oh, damn.
And so he's doing pretty good. He's working full time and everything again. But yeah, he was in the ER for 2 or 3 weeks there. We weren't sure about his status for a minute. It was pretty fucking scary. But he's a tough dude and he's pulled through. But he's still got some medical stuff to go through here at the Mayo Clinic in the next few months here. So we've kind of had to put that stuff on hold for him to get healthy. So touring would be 2025. And how it goes for small bands, well, we don't have a booking agent, but obviously like most of us, like Chris was in Ghostbath for the last couple of years. And so like Chris and I know a ton of people. Todd played in a death metal band called Invidiosis for a long time and did international tours with them. And so the three of us are it's pretty easy for us to find, at least in the Midwest, shows pretty quickly. Our last longer tour was in 2018, but beyond that, I think we're looking to probably do 1.5 weeks at a time at the most, because financially speaking, I sold our bus last year. It was kind of falling apart, rusting apart. So we don't have a tour vehicle. In the last run that we did last year in 2023, we had to rent a vehicle. So that definitely cuts into finances pretty hard when you're like, we only played 4 shows. And I mean, we made money. I mean, but we only made like $1,000 on 4 shows, which is, we're not splitting that up. That went into like, okay, now we're paying that $1,000 into like the cello player that's on this record. We spent ultimately like close to $7,000, even though all of the guitar, except for some of the acoustics in one song and all of the vocals and all of the bass, were recorded at our houses. Yeah, basically. So we somehow still managed to spend $7,000.
Yeah, it's not a cheap
fuck no
hobby.
Fuck no. I mean, 15 songs mixing and mastering, even no matter where you go, it's always going to be expensive. But like Spencer cut me a deal because I'm in his band, and even then, like, yeah, you're still going to spend a pretty penny to mix 15 songs. We've been a band for 14 years at this point, technically since 2010. We've gone through a lot of lineup changes, but we are kind of this massive family of like probably at this point like 10 musicians, even though we are a 5-piece live, and we have a ton of really fucking cool projects already on the horizon after we've completed this, or after this double album is out. I'm really stoked for people to hear the first album. I think if they've liked Amiensis for a long time, they're going to love part 1. If they're new to the band, I think going back to like the beginning of our discography, if like the first songs they've ever heard are off this album, going back to Restoration, our first album, is probably where you're going to really see that sense of familiarity and be like, oh, okay, I get this now. I get this, especially more on the atmospheric side. And if you've liked anything since 2015, you'll really love part 2, because it sounds more like our live show and is a little bit heavier. So, I just hope that if you're a fan of Amiensis, you've reached out at some point, because all of us love to talk to people. We're just normal fucking dudes with jobs and families. And I mean, I ain't got no kids. I don't want no kids, but I got 4 dogs and been married for like 8 years at this point. So, we're just normal people, and I like it's way more fun when we get to go out and play music and stuff, to hang out with people that we've talked to and get gotten to know, and even if it's online for a few months or a few years, than it is to just kind of go out and not talk to people, but play shows.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So hope you guys like it. Excited for our future. Amiensis will never end until I'm dead. So rock and roll, baby.